The night was quiet in the small town at the edge of the forest. The sky above was alive with streaks of light as a meteor shower passed over the land. People in town were gathered outside their homes, pointing at the sky, enjoying the rare and beautiful sight. But Myra, who lived alone in a wooden cabin far from the main road, was not watching the sky. She sat near her small fire, reading an old book, her dog asleep at her feet. She had always liked the silence of nights like this. Meteors came and went every few years, but she never went out to watch them. To her, the night sky was beautiful enough even without them. But that night was different. A sound broke the silence. It was not the sound of a falling meteor. It was not the call of an owl. It was a knock at her door. At first Myra thought she had imagined it. Nobody ever came to her cabin at this hour. She stayed still for a moment, listening. Then the knock came again, louder this time, steady and urgent. Her dog lifted his head, ears pointed, and gave a low growl. Myra stood and walked to the door. She felt a strange chill, as if the knock carried something more than just sound. She opened the door slowly, careful and cautious. There on the doorstep stood a man she had never seen before. He wore a torn coat, covered in dirt and ash. His eyes were filled with fear and exhaustion, yet there was also determination in his face. In his arms he held something wrapped in silver cloth. For a moment Myra thought it was just a bundle, maybe food or supplies. But then the cloth moved, and she saw a small hand reach out. The skin was blue, glowing faintly in the starlight. Her breath caught in her throat. The man looked straight into her eyes and spoke in a broken voice. "He is not yours, but he needs you." Before Myra could ask who he was or what he meant, the man placed the bundle gently into her arms. She felt warmth, a pulse, and the soft weight of an infant. She pulled back the cloth just enough to see the child's face. It was a baby, but not a human baby. His skin shimmered with a soft blue glow, and his eyes, half open, reflected the falling meteors above like small mirrors of the sky. Myra looked back at the man, her mouth opening to ask questions. But he was already stepping back into the night. His steps were unsteady, his body swaying as if he carried a heavy burden. Then, with one last glance at her and the infant, he turned and ran into the trees. "Wait," Myra called out, but he did not stop. Within seconds the forest swallowed him. Her dog barked, confused and alert, but Myra stood frozen at the door, holding the strange infant against her chest. The meteors streaked across the sky behind her, painting the night with fire. The world seemed larger, more dangerous, and more mysterious than it had ever been. She closed the door and sat down, placing the infant on the table. The child made no cry. He only blinked slowly, his small hands curling and uncurling as if reaching for something unseen. His skin glowed faintly, casting a soft blue light across the wooden walls of the cabin. Myra's heart pounded. Who was that man? Why had he chosen her? What kind of child was this? She reached out and touched the infant's hand. His skin was smooth and warm. At her touch, a faint spark of light flickered between their fingers. It was not painful, only strange. It felt like a whisper of energy, like the touch of a star. The dog crept closer, sniffing the child, then sat down beside Myra as if sensing the importance of this moment. Myra felt a strange pull in her chest, an instinct telling her not to abandon the baby, no matter what he was or where he came from. The cabin felt both safe and unsafe at the same time. Safe because the walls sheltered them from the forest, unsafe because she knew she had become part of something far greater than herself. The knock on her door had changed everything. As the night stretched on, the meteors continued to fall. Their light reflected in the baby's eyes, and Myra could not look away. She thought of the man's words again, "He is not yours, but he needs you." She whispered to the infant, though she was not sure if he could understand. "I don't know who you are, or why you were brought to me, but I will keep you safe." The baby's tiny lips curved into what looked like the beginning of a smile. Then he closed his eyes and drifted into sleep, the soft glow of his skin lighting the room like a small lantern. Myra sat there, holding the child, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. She had not asked for this, but she could not turn away. Somewhere out in the forest, the man who delivered the infant was either running from danger or searching for help. And somewhere far above, beyond the meteors, there was a world or a place where this child had come from. The night was no longer just a night. It was the beginning of something new, something that could change her life and maybe even the world. She looked once more at the sleeping infant, then at the door, half expecting another knock. None came. Only silence, broken by the crackle of the fire and the faint hum of the glowing baby's breath. Myra knew she could not sleep. She would stay awake, watching over the child until morning. Whatever had begun that night under the falling meteors was only the first step of a journey she could not yet imagine. And so she kept her promise, whispering softly to herself as she held the child close. "You are not mine, but you are here, and that means you need me." The meteors faded slowly, leaving the sky dark again. The world outside returned to silence, but inside the cabin a new light had been born, one that Myra could not ignore. Morning came with golden light falling across the trees. Birds sang outside, but Myra did not feel the usual calm she often felt at dawn. She sat near the table, her eyes heavy from a night without rest. The infant with blue skin lay wrapped in the silver cloth, sleeping peacefully as if the world outside did not exist. Myra had spent the whole night wondering what she should do. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the stranger's words. "He is not yours, but he needs you." The man had disappeared into the forest, leaving her with more questions than answers. Who was he? Why had he chosen her? And who, or what, was this child? Her dog circled the table and lay down beside the chair, his ears twitching every time the baby moved. Myra reached out and touched the child's small hand. His skin was smooth, warm, and glowing faintly in the sunlight. It was strange, yet beautiful. The baby opened his eyes. Myra gasped softly. His eyes were unlike anything she had seen before. They were wide and bright, not brown or blue or green like human eyes. They shone like clear crystals, reflecting light as if holding pieces of the sky inside them. For a moment she forgot to breathe. The child looked at her with calm curiosity. He did not cry, though she expected a baby to cry for food or comfort. Instead, he studied her face as if trying to understand who she was. Then his small fingers reached up toward her cheek. Myra leaned closer, and his hand touched her skin. She felt another small spark of energy pass between them, soft and harmless, but strong enough to make her heart race. Myra whispered gently, "Who are you, little one?" The baby blinked but gave no answer, of course. Yet Myra felt as if he understood something, even if he could not speak. She decided to prepare food for herself, though she had no idea what the baby needed. She warmed milk on the stove and found an old glass bottle she had once kept for emergencies. She poured the milk in, then tried to feed him. At first, she worried he would not accept it, but the child drank slowly, his glowing eyes watching her. Relief filled her chest. At least he could take human milk for now. The hours passed quietly. But peace did not last long. By midday, Myra noticed something strange. Outside the cabin, near the forest, birds had stopped singing. The woods felt too quiet. She stepped out and scanned the trees. Nothing moved, but she felt as if she were being watched. When she returned inside, the infant was awake again. He lifted his tiny hands toward the ceiling, and faint sparks of blue light flickered between his fingers. Myra froze, staring in wonder. The sparks grew stronger, forming small shapes that floated in the air before fading away. For just a second, Myra saw a pattern, like stars connected in lines, as if he were drawing constellations. Her breath shook. This was no ordinary baby. He carried something far beyond her understanding. She sat down beside him, both amazed and afraid. The afternoon brought more strangeness. A neighbor, old Thomas, came walking on the path near her cabin. He stopped at the gate and waved. "Myra, did you see the meteors last night?" he asked loudly. Myra stepped out, closing the door halfway behind her. "I saw a few," she answered, trying to sound normal. Thomas laughed. "Beautiful sight. Some say it means change is coming. Strange, though, I saw lights in the forest late at night. Not just meteors, but moving lights, like lanterns. Did you see them?" Myra shook her head quickly. "No, I didn't." Thomas nodded, though he looked uncertain. "Be careful out here. Sometimes travelers pass through after nights like that. You never know who they are." He tipped his hat and continued down the road. Myra watched him go, her heart uneasy. She returned inside and checked the child. He was calm, lying on the cloth, but his glowing skin seemed brighter now, as if reacting to something beyond the cabin walls. That evening, Myra lit a lamp and sat by the fire. The baby stirred and made a soft sound, almost like a hum. Suddenly, a faint light appeared above his chest. It grew slowly, forming an image in the air. Myra leaned forward, her eyes wide. It was a small projection, a hologram made of light. She saw stars, many of them, arranged in strange patterns. Then the image changed, showing what looked like a world. It was dark and broken, pieces of land floating apart as if torn by disaster. A voice followed, not strong and not clear, but broken human words echoed in the room. "Protect him. Future depends." Myra sat frozen, unable to move. The image faded, the baby closed his eyes, and the room returned to silence. Her hands trembled. This was no ordinary child. He came from beyond Earth, from a world far away that was dying. And somehow, he had been brought here, placed in her arms, and trusted to her care. As night returned, Myra locked the door and kept the baby close. She could not tell anyone, not yet. People would not understand. Some would be afraid. Others might try to take him away. She remembered old Thomas's words about lights in the forest. If he had seen something, then others had too. Maybe someone was searching for the child already. She held him gently and whispered, "I don't know why you are here, but I will protect you. I promise." The infant stirred, his small hand resting against her chest. The glow of his skin lit the dark cabin softly, like a lantern guiding her in the night. Myra looked at him and felt something she had never felt before. It was more than duty, more than fear. It was connection, a bond that told her she could not walk away from this. The man who brought him had trusted her, and now she would not fail. As meteors faded from the sky and the forest grew quiet again, Myra sat awake with the child in her arms. She felt the weight of a secret too large for one person, but she also felt strength rising inside her. Whatever the child was, wherever he came from, one thing was clear. He needed her. The next day arrived with heavy clouds rolling across the sky. Rain tapped gently on the roof of Myra's cabin, filling the air with the smell of wet earth. She sat near the window, holding the blue-skinned infant close, her mind still full of the strange vision he had shown her the night before. Stars, a broken world, and the message, protect him. Future depends. The baby was calm in her arms, staring at the fire with his crystal-like eyes. He did not cry like human babies. Instead, he seemed to study everything in silence. Every small spark from the fire caught his attention, and Myra noticed that sometimes his tiny hands glowed faintly as if echoing the flame. But Myra could not stay lost in wonder. She had noticed something troubling that morning when she went to fetch water from the stream. She had seen marks in the mud, strange footprints that were too large and too deep to belong to any person from town. Alongside them were round impressions, almost like circles pressed into the ground. It reminded her of tools or machines, but nothing she had ever seen before. Her heart had tightened with fear. She had quickly returned to the cabin, checking the windows and doors. The woods were no longer simply trees and shadows. They felt like watchers, hiding eyes that followed her every move. That night her fears grew stronger. She heard sounds in the forest, soft hums that did not belong to animals. Her dog growled at the window, ears sharp and tail stiff. Myra looked out and saw faint lights moving between the trees. They were not lanterns, nor were they flashlights. They glowed with a cold, steady light, like stars floating low among the trunks. Myra stepped back, clutching the child tighter. Her breathing grew quick. Whoever or whatever had brought this baby here was not alone. He was being hunted. The infant stirred in her arms, his glow brightening as if he sensed danger too. His small hand pressed against her chest, and she felt the same faint spark of energy as before. Myra whispered to him softly, "It is all right. I will keep you safe." The lights outside moved slowly, scanning the ground as if searching for something. Myra blew out her lamp and sat in the dark, waiting, heart pounding. She listened to the hum until it faded away into the distance. Only when the forest grew silent again did she dare to breathe freely. The next morning she decided she could not keep this secret forever. She needed help, but she had to be careful who she trusted. If she told the wrong person, the child would be taken away. If she told no one, she might not survive when the pursuers came closer. She thought about old Thomas. He was kind, but he liked to gossip. Word would spread too fast if she told him. She thought about Anna, the baker's wife in town, who had once helped Myra when she was sick. Anna was trustworthy, but even she might be too afraid. The truth was clear, Myra had no one to rely on but herself, at least for now. Later that day she walked again to the stream with the infant wrapped carefully in her arms. She kept looking over her shoulder, alert to every sound. The footprints from yesterday were still there, but now they were joined by more. They stretched farther along the bank, leading deeper into the forest. Whoever had left them was still near. Myra felt a chill and hurried back to the cabin. She closed the shutters tight and barred the door. Her dog stayed restless, pacing from wall to wall, sniffing at the cracks. The baby remained quiet, but his glow dimmed as if he was saving his strength. That evening, as rain fell harder, Myra tried to distract herself with simple tasks. She cooked soup, fed the dog, and kept the fire alive. But no matter what she did, she could not forget the feeling of being watched. When she placed the baby on the table, something unexpected happened. His small body shivered, and then light spread from his chest again. Myra leaned close as another image formed above him. This time it was not stars or a broken world. It was something else. She saw shapes that looked like tall figures with long arms and glowing helmets. They carried devices that pulsed with light. Around them floated machines, round and silent, their surfaces smooth and dark. The image flickered, then faded, leaving Myra with a heavy weight in her chest. The baby looked at her with his crystal eyes, as if telling her that those were the ones searching for him. She shivered. These were the pursuers. They were not from Earth, and they were closing in. The night grew long. Myra barely slept. Every crack of thunder made her jump, every shadow outside felt like a figure moving closer. Yet she held the child close and whispered promises to him. She did not know how she would protect him, but she knew she must. In the middle of the night, she heard it again, the hum. This time it was closer. She peered out the window and saw 3 lights moving slowly among the trees, searching. The baby stirred, glowing faintly, his small hands reaching toward the window as if sensing the danger beyond. Myra held him tighter, whispering, "Stay quiet, little one. They will not take you." The lights moved past the cabin, sweeping the ground, pausing as if uncertain. Myra froze in place, hardly breathing. The dog pressed against her leg, tense and silent. Minutes passed like hours until finally the lights drifted away, fading into the deeper woods. Myra let out a shaky breath, her arms trembling. The baby closed his eyes again, the glow fading, as if he too was exhausted. Myra knew now that the danger was real and close. She was no longer simply hiding a secret. She was standing between this child and those who wanted him back. The man who had brought the baby had trusted her for a reason. Perhaps he knew she was stubborn enough, strong enough, to stand her ground even when fear pressed hard against her chest. When dawn returned, Myra looked at the infant sleeping in his silver cloth. She brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, "We will survive. You are safe with me." But deep inside she knew the nights ahead would only grow darker. The pursuers would not give up. They were searching with patience and with power. And when they came again, she would need more than promises to protect the child from the stars. The morning was quiet after the long night of fear. Myra had hardly slept, but she kept her promise of watching over the infant. The glow from his skin was faint in the daylight, yet his presence still filled the cabin with a strange energy that made the air feel alive. She sat by the window, looking out at the wet forest where the rain had stopped. Droplets hung on the leaves, shining like glass beads in the soft light. Her mind replayed the image she had seen the night before. Tall figures with glowing helmets, carrying strange devices, moving with purpose. Machines floated near them, scanning the ground. The baby had shown her what was coming. They were the pursuers, and they were not far. Myra turned to the child. He lay wrapped in the silver cloth, wide-eyed and calm, as though he carried no fear at all. His eyes reflected the light, and his small hands opened and closed as if trying to grasp invisible threads. Myra whispered to him, "You know more than you can show. You are trying to tell me something, aren't you?" The child blinked, and for a moment his glow brightened. Then it happened again. A beam of faint light rose from his chest, filling the room with a shimmering pattern. Myra leaned forward, hardly breathing. At first, the shapes looked like stars. She saw constellations, circles of light linked by glowing lines. Then the pattern shifted. A planet appeared, larger than the others, but broken apart like a cracked stone. Pieces of land floated around it, glowing with fire. The sight made Myra's chest ache. She could almost feel the loss, the sadness of a world destroyed. The image flickered, and words echoed faintly through the cabin. They were broken, heavy with static, but Myra could understand some of them. Protect him. He carries hope. Future depends. Her hands tightened on the edge of the table. She whispered the words to herself, trying to keep them steady in her memory. Protect him. Future depends. The image changed again. This time Myra saw figures who looked human but not entirely. They stood together on a rocky surface, holding banners with strange symbols. Behind them rose tall structures that looked like towers of light. She could not understand what they were, but she felt their importance. Then the image faded, leaving only the faint glow of the child's skin. Myra sat back, her breath unsteady. She knew now without doubt. This infant carried the memory and the future of his people. The man who had delivered him was right. He was not hers, but he needed her. And perhaps, in some way, humanity itself was meant to protect him. Her dog stirred near the fire, growling softly. Myra turned to the window and froze. Shapes moved among the trees. They were distant, blurred by the mist, but she knew they were not ordinary hunters or travelers. Tall, thin outlines moved with quiet steps, scanning the forest floor. Faint lights flashed from the devices they carried. Myra's chest tightened with fear. She quickly lifted the child and held him close. She whispered, "We must hide." She placed the baby inside a basket lined with blankets, then tucked the basket beneath the floorboards where a loose wooden plank could be lifted. It was a hiding place she had once used for valuables when travelers came near. Now it would serve to protect something far more precious. The infant looked up at her with calm eyes, as if trusting her completely. She closed the plank gently and whispered, "Stay quiet. I will keep you safe." A knock came at the door. It was not like the stranger's desperate knock that first night. This knock was steady, heavy, and filled with authority. Myra's blood ran cold. She moved quickly to the table and grabbed her knife, holding it tight though she knew it would be useless against what she had seen. The knock came again, louder this time. Her dog barked fiercely, teeth bared. Myra stood frozen, unsure whether to answer or remain silent. Then, just as suddenly as it had come, the knock stopped. Silence pressed against the cabin walls. Myra dared to glance through a small crack in the shutter. Her breath caught. Outside stood a figure taller than any man she had ever seen. Its body was covered in dark armor that shimmered with faint blue lines. Its helmet glowed faintly, hiding its face. In one hand it held a device that pulsed with light, scanning the ground. Behind it hovered a machine, round and silent, its surface smooth as stone. The figure turned its head slowly, as if sensing something inside. Myra ducked back from the window, holding her breath. Her dog continued to growl, but she placed a hand on his neck to keep him quiet. Minutes passed in silence. Myra's heart pounded so loudly she feared it would give her away. She thought of the child hidden beneath the floor. She thought of the promise she had made. Finally, she heard the faint hum of the figure moving away. She peeked through the shutter again. The tall figure was walking back into the forest, the hovering machine following. Myra waited until they were gone before collapsing against the wall, her body trembling. She lifted the floorboard and pulled the basket out. The baby blinked up at her, calm as ever, as if nothing had happened. His glow brightened when her face appeared, and his tiny hand reached for her. Myra held him close and whispered, "They are searching for you. But they will not take you. Not while I live." She rocked him gently until his eyes closed. Then she sat by the fire, knife still in her hand, watching the door as night began to fall. She knew the pursuers would return. They were patient, and they would not give up easily. But Myra also knew something else. The baby carried more than just his own life. He carried knowledge, memories, and hope for a people who had lost their world. Protect him. Future depends. Those words burned in her mind. As the fire crackled and shadows filled the cabin, Myra felt her fear harden into resolve. She was no warrior, but she was human, and humans were known for standing firm when pushed to the edge. The pursuers might have power, but she had something they did not. She had the will to protect what was placed in her care. And she would not fail. The night was long and heavy. Myra did not sleep. She sat with her knife close by, the blue-skinned infant wrapped safely in her arms. The fire in the cabin had burned low, giving only faint light. Outside, the forest was alive with sounds she had never noticed before. Strange hums carried through the air, mixed with the distant rustle of branches. Every sound made her dog raise his head, ears sharp and ready. At dawn, a pale light crept into the room. Myra placed the baby in his basket and walked quietly to the door. She opened it only a crack. The forest seemed calm, but the calm felt unnatural, as though something watched her from beyond the trees. The ground was wet from the rain, and new tracks marked the mud. They were not from deer or hunters. They were wide and deep, with patterns like circles inside them. She closed the door quickly, her heart racing. By midday, she knew she could not remain hidden forever. If the pursuers were searching the forest, sooner or later they would come again. She gathered supplies into a small bag, food, water, and a blanket. She wrapped the infant in the silver cloth and tied the bag to her back. Her dog followed her steps closely, sensing her tension. Myra stepped out of the cabin and moved carefully into the trees. Her plan was simple: keep moving, stay hidden, and find a place the pursuers could not reach. She knew the forest well, its streams and caves, its tall ridges that overlooked the valley. If she kept her wits, she could stay ahead of them. For a while, the forest was silent except for the crunch of her boots and the rustle of leaves. But soon she felt the hum again, low and steady, vibrating in her chest. She froze, clutching the baby. The sound grew louder. Through the trees, faint blue lights appeared, moving slowly but steadily in her direction. Her heart pounded. She crouched low and whispered to the dog, "Quiet." Then she turned and slipped deeper into the woods, keeping to the shadows. The lights behind her moved faster. The pursuers had found her trail. Branches whipped against her arms as she ran. She held the baby tight, whispering to him, "Hold on, little one. Hold on." Her dog ran beside her, barking now, his voice sharp in the air. Then it happened. A beam of light shot past her, striking a tree. The bark exploded in a shower of sparks. Myra stumbled, almost falling. She looked back and saw them clearly for the first time. 3 tall figures moved between the trees. Their bodies were covered in dark armor lined with glowing blue veins. Their helmets shone faintly, hiding their faces. In their hands were devices that pulsed with bright energy. Behind them floated 2 machines, round and smooth, scanning the forest with beams of light. Myra's breath caught. They were faster than she imagined. She turned and ran harder, her legs burning with effort. Another beam of light cut across her path, striking the ground so close she felt the heat on her skin. Her dog barked fiercely and charged toward the nearest figure, snapping at its legs. The armored pursuer swung a device toward him, but the dog leapt aside, buying Myra a few more seconds. She used them to climb a steep ridge, clutching the baby tight. Her arms ached, but she refused to stop. At the top of the ridge, she turned. The pursuers were still coming. The machines floated closer, their beams sweeping across the rocks. She knew she could not outrun them forever. Then the infant stirred. His eyes opened wide, glowing brighter than before. His small hands lifted into the air, and suddenly a burst of energy spread out from his body. A shield of blue light surrounded Myra, the baby, and the dog. The next beam of energy from the pursuers struck the shield and bounced away with a loud crack, shattering trees in the distance. Myra gasped, staring at the glowing wall that now protected them. The baby gave a soft sound, almost like a hum, his tiny body trembling with the effort. The pursuers stopped, their helmets turning toward the shield. They raised their devices again, firing in unison. The beam slammed into the shield, lighting the ridge with blinding flashes. Myra crouched low, covering the baby's head, but the shield held firm. The infant's glow grew brighter, filling the air with a pulse that made the machines shake. One of the floating machines sparked and fell, crashing into the trees below. The armored figures stepped back, their weapons lowering slightly. It was as if they were not prepared for such resistance. For the first time, Myra felt a surge of hope. She whispered to the baby, "You are stronger than they know." But the effort was too much for him. The glow dimmed, the shield flickered, and then it vanished. The baby fell silent in her arms, eyes closing from exhaustion. Myra's heart tightened with fear. She knew he could not protect them for long. Now it was her turn again. She lifted the child and ran down the other side of the ridge. The dog stayed close, barking to distract the pursuers. Behind them, the figures shouted in a language she could not understand. Their machines hummed louder, but Myra did not look back. She only ran, using every path and shortcut she knew. At last she reached a cave hidden behind thick vines. She slipped inside, breathless, and pressed her back against the cold stone. The baby lay quiet, sleeping, his glow faint but steady. The dog stood at the entrance, ears sharp, guarding them. Myra listened to the forest outside. The hums grew faint, then silent. The pursuers had lost her trail, at least for now. She closed her eyes and let out a long breath. She had survived the first encounter. The baby had saved them with his strange power, but she knew it was not enough. The pursuers would return, stronger and more determined. She had to be ready. Myra looked down at the child, her face set with resolve. "They will not take you," she whispered. "Not while I live. We will find a way." The cave was dark and cold, but in Myra's arms the infant glowed softly, a small light against the shadows. It was a light that gave her strength, a light that told her this fight was only beginning. The cave gave Myra and the infant one night of safety, but by morning she knew they could not stay there. The child's glow had dimmed after using his power, and he needed rest, food, and warmth. The cave was damp and cold, not fit for a baby. Myra wrapped him in the silver cloth and stepped out into the morning light. Her dog walked beside her, his tail low but his body ready. The forest was quiet again, though Myra could not trust that silence. She moved carefully, following old hunting paths until she reached the narrow trail that led toward town. She had promised herself she would keep the secret alone, but now she realized the truth. She could not protect the child by herself forever. The pursuers were too powerful, and sooner or later they would come in greater numbers. If the infant truly carried the hope of another world, then humanity had to share in that burden. By midday she reached the edge of town. People were busy with their usual tasks, carrying baskets, mending fences, and talking about the strange meteor shower that had passed only nights ago. Myra kept the baby hidden beneath her cloak as she walked to Anna's house. Anna was kind, steady, and brave. If there was anyone she could trust, it was her. Anna opened the door and gasped when she saw Myra's pale face. "Myra, what happened to you? You look like you've seen a ghost." Myra stepped inside quickly. "Please, close the door. I need your help." Anna shut the door, her eyes full of concern. Myra unwrapped the cloak just enough to show the infant's glowing skin. Anna drew in a sharp breath, her hand covering her mouth. "By the stars, what is he?" Myra spoke in a low voice. "He is not from here. A man brought him to my door during the meteor shower. He said the child needed me. Since then I have been hunted. Strange beings in armor are searching the forest. They want him back, but I cannot give him to them. Anna, he is more than just a baby. He carries something important. I saw it with my own eyes. His people are gone, and now he needs us." Anna stared at the infant, who blinked calmly with his crystal eyes. Then she nodded. "You were right to come. We cannot turn away from this." Myra felt a wave of relief. Together they sat by the table as Myra explained everything: the glowing shield, the machines, the message about protecting him. Anna listened carefully, her face pale but determined. "We must tell the others," Anna said at last. "But only those we trust." That evening, Anna gathered a few townsfolk into her home. Old Thomas was there, along with two farmers named Ben and Ruth. They listened as Myra told her story, showing them the baby. Gasps filled the room, but not one person turned away. Thomas spoke first, his voice shaking. "If what you say is true, then we stand at the edge of something far greater than us. Those beings in the forest will not stop. If they come here, they will harm anyone who stands in their way." Ben frowned. "Then what choice do we have? We cannot fight them." Myra held the child close. "Maybe we cannot fight as they do, but we can choose not to give him up. Humanity has survived storms, wars, and disasters because we stand together. If this child carries the hope of his people, then we must show him the strength of ours." Ruth placed a hand on the table. "I agree. We cannot let strangers from the sky take a baby from us, no matter what he is. If he was brought to Earth, then there must be a reason. We will protect him." The room grew quiet. One by one, they all nodded. Humanity's choice had been made in that small kitchen. That night, they prepared. Ben and Ruth carried wood to block doors and windows. Thomas gathered old hunting rifles and axes. Anna stored food and water in case they had to hide. Myra held the infant close, whispering to him that he was no longer alone. When darkness fell, the hum returned. This time it was louder, stronger, and closer. Blue lights flickered through the trees at the edge of town. The pursuers had come again, and they were not hiding their presence. The townsfolk gathered outside, their lanterns glowing in the night. Myra stood among them, the baby wrapped in her arms. Her dog growled low, ready to defend. The first armored figure stepped out of the forest, tall and dark, its helmet glowing faintly. Two more followed, and behind them hovered machines that scanned the ground with beams of light. The sight made Myra's heart pound, but she did not step back. The lead figure raised a hand, and a deep voice echoed, broken but clear enough to understand. "Give the child." Silence followed. The people stood still, gripping their tools and weapons. The pursuer repeated the demand. Give the child, or face destruction. Myra lifted her chin. Her voice shook, but it carried across the square. No. He is under our care now. He is not yours to take. The figure tilted its head, almost in disbelief. Then it raised its weapon, and the machines hummed louder. But before they could strike, something happened. The infant stirred in Myra's arms. His body glowed brighter than ever before, filling the square with blue light. His eyes opened wide, and a beam of light shot into the sky, splitting the clouds. The ground trembled as if the earth itself responded to his call. The pursuers stepped back, shielding their helmets from the glow. The machines flickered, their beams breaking apart. One by one they retreated, their hums fading into the distance. The townsfolk stood in silence, staring at the light that poured from the infant. Myra held him close, her heart racing. She could feel his strength, not just as a child, but as a symbol of something far greater. Humanity had chosen to protect him, and he had answered with a power none of them could explain. When the light faded, the baby fell asleep again, his glow soft and calm. The people slowly lowered their weapons, their eyes wide with awe. Thomas spoke at last. We stood together, and they fled. Perhaps they know now that humanity will not bow. Myra looked down at the child and whispered, "You are safe, little one. We will keep you safe." The night grew quiet again, but it was no longer the same quiet. It was a silence filled with strength, the silence of a town that had made its choice. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would protect. The night sky stretched over the town, calm and quiet after the events of the day. Myra sat on the steps of her cabin, the blue-skinned infant resting in her arms. His soft glow filled the porch with gentle light, illuminating her tired but determined face. The townsfolk had returned to their homes, but their eyes remained alert, and their hearts carried the memory of the light the child had shown them. Myra looked up at the stars. The meteor shower was long gone, but the memory of streaks across the sky lingered. It was as if the universe had shifted in some small but profound way. The infant stirred, blinking slowly, his crystal eyes reflecting the stars above. He made a soft hum, a sound that seemed to resonate in Myra's chest. For the first time, Myra allowed herself a small smile. She realized that life would never return to the quiet simplicity it once had. She had been chosen to protect something extraordinary, and she had kept her promise. The child had survived because humanity had stood together. The choice they had made, the choice to protect him, had changed everything. Early the next morning, Myra gathered the townsfolk outside. She wanted them to see the child, not just as a fragile being, but as the living symbol of hope they had defended. One by one, they came forward. Thomas, Anna, Ben, Ruth, and others who had stayed by her side, all looked at the infant with awe and wonder. "Look at him," Myra said softly. "He is ours to protect now. Not because he belongs to us, but because he needs us. He carries the future of another world, and perhaps our future too. Together, we chose to protect him. That choice matters more than anything else." The infant stirred, lifting his tiny hands. A faint glow spread from his body, filling the space around them. This time, it was not a shield or a weapon. It was light that danced and shimmered, reflecting in the eyes of everyone present. The townsfolk gasped. The glow was calm, soothing, and full of life. It felt like the warmth of the sun and the quiet of the stars all at once. Thomas stepped closer. "We have seen what they feared. We have shown courage. Perhaps they will not come back, or perhaps they will. But we are ready, and we are together." Anna nodded, tears in her eyes. We cannot know what will happen, but we can protect what is good. This child is a gift, not just for us, but for the universe. The infant made a soft sound, almost like a word forming. Myra leaned closer. Home, she whispered. The child's first sound, his first recognition of safety. Myra felt a rush of warmth. Home was not just the cabin, or the town. Home was the place where he was safe, where he was loved, where people chose to stand together for what mattered most. The day passed slowly. Myra and the townsfolk worked together to reinforce the cabin, making it stronger and safer. They cleared hidden paths and set up small shelters where they could watch for danger. The child remained calm, glowing softly, sometimes raising his tiny hands to make light flare across the walls. Each flicker reminded Myra and the others that they were not alone. By evening, Myra sat again on the porch, the infant asleep in her arms. She thought about the first night he had appeared on her doorstep, under the meteor shower. How far they had come. How much fear had been faced. And how courage had grown from choice. Humanity had not only protected the child, but in doing so, they had proved their worth to the universe. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint hum of distant stars. Myra closed her eyes for a moment, letting the peace of the night fill her. She thought of the pursuers, and of the world the child had come from. She wondered if they would return, if other dangers awaited, if the child's people had left messages beyond this one. The infant stirred, opening his eyes. He looked up at Myra, then at the sky. She smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "You are safe here," she said. "We will protect you, no matter what comes." Suddenly, a soft light appeared above him. It was not the child's glow alone, but a message in light, like tiny stars forming patterns in the air. Myra watched in amazement. Shapes of planets, constellations, and distant worlds appeared, as if the universe itself was acknowledging their courage. The message was clear: the child was not alone, and neither were they. The townsfolk gathered around, watching the light with wide eyes. Some whispered quietly, others stood in awe. Myra realized that what they had done together was more than protection. It was proof that humanity could rise to challenges greater than themselves, that they could choose hope and courage over fear and submission. Night deepened, and the stars above shone brighter than before. Myra felt a calm strength in her chest. The child slept peacefully, glowing faintly, safe in her arms and among the people who had chosen to protect him. Humanity had shown what it could be. They had faced fear, faced the unknown, and chosen to do what was right. In the days that followed, Myra taught the townsfolk to watch over the child carefully, but without fear. She explained the importance of quiet, of observation, and of courage. The baby's presence changed the town. People were kinder, more aware, and more united. They had touched something greater than themselves, and it had left a mark on their hearts. One evening, Myra held the child on the porch as the sun set. The sky was painted with colors of gold, red, and purple. The baby's glow reflected the colors of the sunset, making the world around them shimmer softly. Myra whispered, "Home is not just a place. Home is where you are safe, where you are loved, and where people choose to stand together." The child cooed softly, and Myra smiled. She knew that their journey was not over. The universe was vast, full of unknowns and dangers, but also full of possibilities. Together, they had taken the first step. Humanity had proven its courage, and the infant had chosen them as protectors. As night fell completely, the stars reflected in the child's eyes once more. Myra felt a sense of peace she had never known. The future was uncertain, but hope was alive. Humanity had shown that it could rise, defend, and care for what mattered most. And in that moment, under the quiet sky, with the child glowing softly in her arms, Myra understood what it meant to truly protect life, to truly stand for hope. The infant stirred again, lifting a tiny hand as if reaching for the stars. Myra leaned close and whispered softly, "Welcome home, little one." The wind carried the sound through the town, through the trees, and into the vast night. A new beginning had come, not only for the child but for humanity as well. The stars shone above, and below them, people stood together, ready to face whatever the universe might send next. The story ended with calm, with courage, and with the knowledge that choice, bravery, and love could create light even in the darkest of times. Myra held the child close, knowing that no matter what came, they had each other, and humanity had proven its worth.